In step 2, we'll standardize the geometry to raster datasets with a 10-foot cell size. We'll use the feature to raster tool to convert the land use to a land use raster, the slope tool to convert the DEM to a percent slope raster, and the Euclidean distance tools to convert the streets and the streams to distance accumulation raster datasets. Back in ArcGIS Pro, I'll start by activating the analysis ribbon and opening up the geoprocessing tools. And I'm going to search for feature to raster. And I can open it from this item, but I actually like to locate the items to see where they are in the toolboxes. So I'm going to locate it, and I can see that it's located in the conversion tools toolbox in the to raster tool set, and there it is, feature to raster. So I'm going to click on and open it, set my input features to my land use, and it's using just the selected records, my field to general use ID, my output raster in my project geodatabase, and I'm going to rename it as simply land use. And then notice my output cell size is the DEM. That's because if I go over and look at the environments panel, you can see it's using all of the environments that I configured for geoprocessing. So go back to parameters and go ahead and click run to convert our selected land use parcels to a raster dataset. And there you can see my raster dataset in my geodatabase and my raster layer in my contents pane. And in the map, I can see it's just the government-owned property. And I confirm that by clicking on one of them and seeing that the raster value is 600. And all the other values are no data. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the pop-up window. Now we want to create our percent slope raster. So I'm going to go ahead and clear my selected records and then go back to the toolboxes, collapse the conversion tools toolbox, and then scroll down and expand the spatial analyst tools toolbox and locate the surface tool set, expand that. And then in the surface tool set, we can find the slope tool. Go ahead and click on the slope tool. And in the slope tool, we'll set the input raster as our digital elevation model, or DEM. The output raster is going to be again in our project geodatabase, and we'll call it simply slope. The output measurement, we're going to switch from degree to percent rise, accept the remaining default parameter values, and go ahead and click run. All right, that creates our slope raster dataset in our project geodatabase and our slope raster layer in our contents pane. You can see the lighter colors are the flatter areas and the darker colors are the steep areas. So the residential areas are in the flatter areas. And then up here at the top in the Barton Creek Greenbelt, you can see the very steep areas within Sunset Valley city limits. Go ahead and click back on the geoprocessing pane. I'm going to collapse the surface tool set. And now within the spatial analyst toolbox, locate the distance tool set. And we want to use the distance accumulation tool to calculate our accumulated distance from streets and streams. Go ahead and click on it to open it. We'll do streets first. So I'll click on the drop down and set it to streets. And then for our output raster, go ahead and just call it simply streets. Accept the remaining default values and go ahead and click run. And so that creates our streets raster dataset in our geodatabase and listed as a raster layer in the content pane. You can see the greens are closer to the streets and the whites are further away. And that's reflected in the map view as well. Now let's create our streams raster. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the input raster to streams. change the output raster name from streets to streams. Click Run. And that creates our streams raster dataset and loads our raster layer into the map view, where the greens are closer to the streams and the whites are further away from the streams. All right, go ahead and close your geoprocessing pane. I'm going to reset my interface. Go ahead and save my ArcGIS Pro project. Now that we've standardized our geometry, in step 3, we'll standardize our values to a common attribute scale of 5 best or most suitable to 1 worst or least suitable. And we'll use the reclass tool to reclassify our layers, including reclassifying land use 600 features as 5 and everything else, no data, as 1. Reclassifying slope as flat, which is preferable, 0 to 10% slope, as 5, all the way to very steep as 1. We'll reclassify streets where proximity to a street is a good location because it makes it accessible. So within 500 feet of streets, we'll classify it as 5 or most suitable, and greater than 1,000 feet from a street as 1 or least suitable. And then we'll do the same thing with streams, but we're going to reverse it, because if the composting facility is close to a stream, it might pollute it. So if it's within 500 feet of a stream, that's going to be least suitable, or 1, and greater than 1,000 feet from a stream is going to be most suitable, or 5. Back in ArcGIS Pro, I'll activate the analysis ribbon and click on Tools to open up the geoprocessing pane. I'm going to collapse the distance toolset, and in the Spatial Analyst toolbox, scroll down to the Reclass toolset, expand that, and then we're going to use Reclassify to reclassify the values in a raster. We're going to start with land use, so we'll set our input raster as land use, the reclass field as value, and we can see the values that are 600, we're going to reclass those as 5, or most suitable, and no data, we're going to reclass that as 1, or least suitable. Go ahead and rename the output raster as land use underscore reclass. Click Run. All right, so there you can see our raster dataset and raster layer, where most suitable is 5 and least suitable is 1. And let's use a symbology that's a little bit more intuitive. So we're going to switch 5 from purple in this case to fur green for most suitable, and 1, which is least suitable, we're going to switch that to poinsettia red. All right, so now we can see in our map view the areas that are most suitable relative to land use. Go ahead and close the symbology pane, and I'm going to reset the reclassify tool by clicking back and then opening the reclassify tool again. This time I'm going to set the input raster to slope. There you can see my reclass table. I'm going to click on the classify button, which allows me to reduce the number of classes. So I'm going to switch the method really to anything. I'm going to switch it to natural breaks. And then now I'm going to switch the classes to 3, which is what I want. And then I can manually update the classes. So my upper value for my first class is going to be 10. For my second class is going to be 20. And then I'll leave the maximum value. Go ahead and click OK. Now I have 3 classes. 0 to 10 is flat. It's most suitable. So I'm going to score that as a 5. Click 5 and click Enter on your keyboard. 10 to 20 is medium. So I'm going to score that as 3. Click Enter. And then the most steep areas are least suitable. So I'm going to reclass that as 1. I need to rename my output raster, and I'll just call it slope underscore reclass. And click Run. there's my slope reclass raster dataset, my raster layer. I'm going to update the symbology. This time, I'm just going to change the color scheme. Click down a couple of color ramp options and select condition number, green to red. And then I've got my values need to be flipped because 5 is most suitable. So I'm going to go to more, symbol, and reverse the order. So now 5 is green or most suitable, and red is 1 or least suitable. And if I close the symbology pane, you can see that reflected in my map. The residential areas are flattest, and the areas around the creeks are steepest and least suitable for our composting facility. All right, I'm going to reset the reclassify tool by going back and then opening it again. This time, we're going to set our input raster as streets. Click the classify button. Change the classes to 3 classes. And our upper value is going to be 500 feet. Our middle value is going to be 1,000 feet. And then we leave the max value set how it is. Click OK. And so now we have our 3 classes. From 0 to 500 is most suitable because it's most accessible. So we'll reassign that as 5. 500 to 1,000 is better. We'll call that a 3. And the least suitable is over 1,000 feet from the streets. We'll call that a 1. Rename the output raster as streets underscore reclass. Click run. All right, there's our raster data set and our raster layer. Update the symbology using the condition number color scheme. And then reverse the order of the symbology. Close the symbology. Now you can see the closer you are to streets, the more green or more suitable. And the further away you are, the more red or less suitable. All right, we'll do it one last time. Reset the reclassify tool. This time the input raster is going to be streams. Click classify. Change the brakes to 3. And then set the upper value for the first class at 500. Click enter. The middle value at 1,000. Click enter. Leave the max value and click OK. And then we don't want our composting facility close to the stream. So 0 to 500, 1 is correct. 500 to 1,000, we'll set that as a 3. And then most suitable is the furthest away from a stream. So greater than 1,000 feet is going to be a 5. Go ahead and update your output raster. And we'll call it streams underscore reclass. Click run. All right, there's our streams reclass raster dataset and raster layer. I'm going to update the symbology. Set it to green to red condition number. And then reverse the order. So now looking at my map view, I can see that the closer I am to the streams, the less suitable it is, and the further away, the more suitable. All right, reset my interface and save ArcGIS Pro project.